This is Matt.
This is Ariane.
So, we are back. This is another segment of our Netflix Roundup. And this is more of a discussion, which means if you're watching, feel free to jump in on the discussion.
Particularly if you've seen the movies.
Yeah.
If you have not, there is a spoiler-free version that we just did that's up. So please be sure to watch that.
If you want to watch spoiler-free version, just type in the same title, Part 1, spoiler-free version, and it will pop up. So first, let's start with a little plug. We're not going to do a full review on it just because you should watch it. We're going to plug Mindhunters real quick. We mentioned it in the last video. The series is fantastic.
Absolutely.
The main character is riveting, and he's not necessarily good guy, bad guy. He is.
I think he's more of a good guy, but he's definitely.
He is, but he plays with that line.
I don't think. Well, okay, we're not gonna do a review of it, so I wouldn't say he's a good guy or bad guy. He's works for the FBI trying to track down killers, but he's a little
unorthodox.
Unorthodox certainly would be the word to describe it.
Yeah.
Not
so
like Dexter or anything
I
like that.
personally give
yeah.
that one a 9.5.
I would give it a fucking 10. Easily.
There you go.
I love this series.
So, between 9 and 10, make sure you watch Mindhunters if you get a chance. It's on Netflix. So, we will start in the same order we did last time.
Yes.
And we will start with our discussion on Train to Busan.
Yes.
This is a movie that is debatable who came across this.
Actually, you know what? Let's do, if you don't mind, let's do They Killed My Father first. We just got finished watching that one. It's a little fresher. Let's do that one first. And then I think we're going to have more to say about Train to Busan.
That's fair, especially since I feel like that's the happier note to end on, in my opinion.
Quote unquote happier.
Yeah. So rewind. We will start with First They Killed My Father. This is possibly the directorial debut of Angelina Jolie. It's definitely her directorial debut on Netflix.
Yeah, we're probably clear on that, yeah.
So I'll go with that. So this one I give a solid 7.5. And it's not because it's necessarily a terrible film. It's a good film to watch, and it's a very good story to watch. It just felt that, first of all, it was a little confusing. It was very hard to follow. Now, Ariane, you brought up the point that this is all told from a little girl's point of view, so that may have been Angelina Jolie's kind of direction.
Yeah. That
she wanted this movie to
This is absolutely not her.
You did not know what was going on.
This is absolutely not her directorial debut. She's done 5 other films prior to this, but this is probably her first one on Netflix.
Okay. So maybe her direction was, and you made a good point, this is all a story told from a 7-year-old little girl.
It starts when she's 5, but yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, it's basically made to confuse you because you're supposed to feel like this kid. This is a 7-year-old kid, doesn't know what's going on in the world really. She's just being drugged through these situations and being forced to survive, which kudos to the little girl in this movie. Tremendous actress, tremendous performance. Really made me feel for the character. Now, besides the confusing part, it also moved a little slow for me.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here.
Okay.
I give it a solid 8.5. And I was not. I understand some of the confusion that you felt, especially if you're not familiar with the history of Cambodia, which I'm not 100% entirely certain about either. And that is probably largely from having been Americanized education. You know, there's only so much that they can fit into curriculum in high school, and this may have been a footnote. They mention it, they go over it possibly as part of the story through Vietnam, but it's not focused on, I would say, probably. But that's neither here nor there. I didn't have a problem with that though, because I realized if you look at the camera direction they use for it, a lot of it is where the camera angles are doing a shot up. Everything is from this perspective of it's through the eyes of this little girl.
That's
so
a very
she
good point.
is shorter than everyone else because she's only 5, 6, or 7. So she's looking up at her mom and dad. She's looking up at her older sister and brothers. A lot of things. She's looking up at the other adults in her life. And so a lot of times the camera angles are, when they're doing stuff specifically from her perspective, oftentimes it'll be from kind of like things are done with an angle where the frame is from someone who's standing above you. And that is to kind of put you in the perspective of the little girl. Like, you are lower in some estimations, particularly with the people who were in charge of the different work camps compared to everyone else. Even with other children who were working for the Khmer Rouge, who were ordering her sisters and brothers around, they were still higher than her, even if they were also children. And so that didn't bother me. Even when she's running from one situation to another, walking from one situation to another, trying to get from one camp to another, from her town to the camp, so forth and so on. It's that she is just kind of going along because she has no other choice. She doesn't know why any of these things are happening. She doesn't know why one day she's living just this normal life of a Cambodian child, mom, dad, several sisters and brothers, possibly going to school, has New Year's dresses, participates in different cultural events, and then all of a sudden she has to run for her life with her family. And then it just kind of feels like she's constantly doing that. People barking orders, people with guns, people shooting each other, random dead bodies, and everyone just walks past it. Like, not really knowing what's going on, but knowing that she still has to do what she's told in order to survive. And so that part wasn't really confusing to me. There was a section where I think the confusing part, when you mentioned while we were watching the film, was like, so are they in the Vietnam camp now? Are they in Vietnam? And honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. And maybe she doesn't. Maybe that's part of it. Part of the experience. She doesn't know if she's still in her homeland of Cambodia anymore or not, from all the different times she's been walking. She's just now under the command of the Vietnamese soldiers, and we presume that they're Vietnamese, in that up until this point she's been told that the Vietnamese are her enemy, and now we see people who are wearing completely different uniforms than everyone else, but they're not American soldiers, they're obviously not French soldiers, they very likely could be Vietnamese, and I don't know enough about their signals to know what colors or whatever they're supposed to have on their uniforms. I just know it's totally different than what they were wearing before, and I think that's part of the point. She doesn't know. So she's the best guess that she can make is that, for all we know, she is in Cambodia still, and she's just now behind the Vietnamese lines. So.
Yeah, and that was a lot of good points you make, like the camera work. I didn't really click with me, but now that you say it like that, I think I understand that is more thing. But I still hold to my fact that it did move a little slow, and it didn't feel like there was a resolution coming. It just came like, there was a scene where I looked down at the clock and I'm like, oh, this movie should be ending in about 10 minutes. Doesn't feel like it should be ending. And that's just something I was missing from it, because, in other movies that I've loved and always given attention, you feel that ending coming. In this, it just felt like you're getting punched in the gut over and over and over again, and there's no true resolution to it. While she does eventually find her family at the end, and there's that huge resolution, it's still the point of it's not satisfying enough, but maybe it's not supposed to be satisfying enough because it's not a satisfying story.
I think that's the point, actually.
But it also hurt me watching it as a film viewer, because maybe this, and again, I don't want to shit on this girl's story. Don't get me wrong.
It's the movie. We're focusing on the movie.
Yes, the story that this girl tells is amazing. I cannot believe she made it through this stuff. I don't think I could have. And that just is a testament to her bravery and her strength and her courage. And so I have nothing but respect for this girl. I just don't know if her story translates to film well.
I disagree. I think it absolutely translates to film well. I think we've watched enough different horror surviving stories, either in horror or in true life, that you don't need to know all the facts. I mean, how many zombie films we watch? We were talking about this, and we'll talk about it a little bit in Train to Busan. How many horror zombie movies in particular, specifically zombies, where the zombie outbreak happens and we have no idea why, but it doesn't matter. All you need to know is that the people who are in it are terrified and what they're terrified of. And so with this film, I kind of feel like that was kind of the point, was that while there didn't feel like there was any resolution, maybe that's kind of the point. They never really ever get that. So part of the spoiler-heavy version is that, yes, if you're watching this, hopefully you've already watched this movie, because I'm about to spoil something for you right now.
Spoilers!
So turn it off now. But the idea is that they killed my father first. But the problem is you never see him die. You see in her mind what she assumes to happen. Although that's also something that was weird for me watching it as a film viewer. She never was given any information to that context, so it had her indicate that her father was taken out into the woods and then was like, had a blow to the head and fell into a mass grave. Like, there was no information like that happening around her that we saw that would lead her to believe that that was going on.
Yeah, so I don't know where that came from.
Where that came from might be only her expectation or assumption of what happened, or translating what she might have found out was most likely to happen to him, and the same thing likely what happened to her mother and her youngest sibling. However, I think that's where that resolution comes, or that not having a resolution come, is that she may not very well ever know. Without going in and reading her book, without actually going through and reading the Wikipedia at least about like the synopsis for this movie and the background about it, or knowing about what happened in the Khmer Rouge, the reality is that she may never have ever found out what happened to either of those family members or her little sibling, because when they show her and her siblings at the end, it's still the same 5 that were together at the very end of the movie when they were young. They never find that youngest sibling, presumably, and they never find their family.
Again, I'm pretty sure she died at the beginning, because they have that conversation of what happens when people die.
There's 2 siblings, so yeah, there's 4 people that killed that in her family. I think that what happened was that they go to visit her sister, who has been wounded in the war because she was press-ganged into service as a child soldier. And they, for some reason, allow them to go visit her in their makeshift hospital. And she's clearly dying. She's clearly not doing well. Mm-hmm. And which is an incredibly powerful and palpable scene, which I want to get to in a second as well. But the issue is that immediately afterwards, we see one of the Khmer Rouge, not leaders, but soldiers,
generals, captains, whatever.
Captain. We'll say it's a captain or something like that. Talking to her father in the field, and she's working, and she just kind of sees him off to the distance. That same person goes and runs to talk to a woman who is doing work in the field, and so I'm pretty certain it's not her mother. And I think that that's kind of what we're led to think, is that this woman could easily have been her mother.
Yeah. And
she's clearly upset and mourning something that has just happened, most likely the death of her child, probably in this very similar situation. Yeah. And so when her and her sister are having that conversation afterwards about what happens to people when they die, she's probably worried about her sister, thinking that she is probably likely to die, but if she doesn't, she hopes she doesn't come back to the camp.
Well, that's how I interpret it. That's the thing, it's not very clear.
She says, I hope that Kiev,
doesn't have to come back here.
Yeah.
That doesn't say whether she's died or not.
No, but we assume
she
that
could say that if she does or doesn't.
But we can assume that most likely she does.
And we can assume that she does. But there was too much assuming in this movie.
But I think that's the problem, is that when you go and the thing is that I remember when this movie came out. We saw the trailer for it like in August, that it was coming out in September, and I want to see that when it comes out. Now, I never got down to seeing it in September, but then I was watching Schindler's List, like I mentioned in the last trailer, and actually immediately after that was done, the next movie that it was like, you should watch, They Killed My Father, or First They Killed My Father, and watching the trailer again for like, okay, yeah, I really want to see this movie. I think the whole point is that when you go through a scenario like that, where your entire family is being ripped apart in a war-torn country, and there's all sorts of chaos, if you aren't able to find them afterwards, you never really know what happens to them. You have to assume that they are dead. You can assume they're alive. But the issue is you never know, so you are assuming. So if you feel like you're assuming a lot in this movie, that's probably for a point.
No, and I understand that, but I think it hurts the film.
As an experience for a viewer, it is really important to have some of these things like kind of tied up neatly. But I think that's part of our experience as an American film goer. that we have these things very neatly tied up in a bow, as well as our own personal experiences in not having gone through war-torn countries and concentration camps and things like that. So from our own perspective and privilege, it's really easy to say, like, oh, I wish it was like this. The problem is life is not always like that. And I think this movie does a very good job of showing that from a child's eyes.
And that's a very good point. I will bump my rating up to an 8 based on the reasons you gave. I still can't go higher than that because I still did have some issues with the movie.
There was not very much dialogue. We talked about this movie was actually done
it was very visual,
almost entirely in subtitles, which is fine. It's just that, and this is something actually I'm going to bring up about the next movie we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But there was something missing, that emotional connection. That while there's a scene where they're looking over her oldest sister, who has been wounded in the war, and she's there with her mother, and her mother is clearly sobbing, like not even like, whoo, but like tears are streaming, the snot is running. Like, this was an incredible acting job by this woman, and the tears from the sister realizing that she's gonna die, and seeing her family members there and not being able to do anything about it, and of course the little girl throughout. Like the tears, the emotion that was just demonstrated by everyone in this film was like
fantastic.
Yeah, there are no words. It was very real. For some reason, though, and I don't know if this is, again, I mentioned that privilege. I don't know if it's something to do with the actual direction, not direction, but like the film making, because the direction was fantastic. I don't know if I'm trying to like hype it up more because it's Angelina Jolie or something. I don't know. But in general, though, like, there was some connection missing for me, and I don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. That maybe I would get it a second time again watching it.
Possibly.
But the first time, that sympathetic, nervous, a sympathetic like response you see when someone else is crying, it was very difficult to have it. Now, I absolutely had it during the minefield scene.
And that's where I was going to go, because I've gone over my cons of this movie, and I feel like I'm downing it a little bit. So let me go over some pros. I'm going to start with the biggest pro of them all is the minefield scene.
Which would make sense, especially considering...
Now that I know that what she advocates for, I know why that scene...
By the way,
had such a focus on it.
Advocates for the campaign for a landmine-free world.
Yeah. So... this scene, and she's in the middle of a Vietnamese camp, I'm assuming, and the Vietnamese camp gets attacked. She wakes up to a bomb dropping. I mean, it is just utter chaos from the beginning of the scene. And it's tremendously done.
Yes.
You really get this, I need to get the fuck out of here feeling that she is definitely... feeling.
And she just found her sister and brother, who she thought she was never going to see again. She'd been separated from earlier on, and now she's trying to keep them together.
Yeah.
She's afraid for herself and for them.
And so she grabs them, and they start running, and there was 2 or 3 other kids that they had met, and they decided they were going to stick together. You know, kids form friends very easily, and they had a chicken, they had a fire, we're friends.
Yeah.
So they meet up with these kids on the other side of this dune, and the 2 kids that they had met, I am working on it. Don't rush me.
Well, this is the point of the minefields. Yes, go ahead.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
But there's another part that I really want to point out.
Sure thing, baby.
So they're standing there next to the 2 kids. They're hiding behind a dune while fire's just flying over their heads. And the 2 kids that they met decide to run off.
3 kids. There's 3 kids.
3 kids that they met decide to run off. And one of them gets shot in the head going up the dune. And he falls. And the 2 kids pause for a second and then take off because of the situation. And it's just really powerful to watch that. And then a Vietnamese soldier comes down right next to the kid, not even paying attention to the kid, just starts firing. And she just has this snap decision to use that soldier as cover as she goes up the dunes, which I thought was just gorgeous. So then they run into the forest. They run into the forest, and all of a sudden, all these explosions start going off. And the way it's shot and the way the scene is, at first you think it's artillery. And because that's what they've been getting pelted with. But then she stops and looks at the ground, and you realize that they are standing on a live minefield. Her sister and brother are nowhere to be found. She starts calling out to them, and when she starts calling out to them, she lets this tear roll, this one single tear.
Tears. No, it was tears.
Okay, tears. And it was gorgeous. But, oh my god, the tension in that scene, when you realize they're in a minefield.
There are bodies all around. There are limbs. There are people crawling for life and wounded. And
people still running.
Yeah.
People are still running through past her.
And running and getting blown the fuck up.
And some of them aren't. And that's what I think really adds to it, is there are people running through. You don't know who's going to make it. You don't know who's not going to make it. You don't know if one of them's not going to make it right next to her.
Yeah.
You don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And that scene is just so beautifully done, from the bird's eye view shots to the slow, tedious pace that she takes while all this chaos is going around her. Oh my god, it was gorgeous.
On top of linking in the previous scenes that she herself, while being under the direction of the Khmer Rouge, had been responsible for placing landmines.
Yeah.
And so she knows what the fuck this is that she is standing in. She might very well be standing on a landmine and won't know till she takes a step.
Yeah.
And so it's a fantastic. Like, at some point, she finally starts taking steps.
And you don't know why, because they don't really point out what she's doing until after a few steps.
Well, she's definitely finding footprints in the sand.
Well, you don't get that right away.
No, but she's also looking at anything that doesn't look like it's disturbed.
Yeah.
Ground that hasn't been disturbed. So she specifically walks around what looks like kind of a mound of dirt. It's very, very subtle, but it's a mound of dirt that's loose. It's different than what's around it, as well as grass, twigs, and leaves. So anything that's undisturbed ground, she's absolutely looking for. And then later on, she's looking for steps. But before she looks for steps, when she is making those first footsteps, she takes like 1, 2, maybe a third one, and then there's an explosion, which they cut to like almost immediately as off in the distance, and it shows her jumping. I know I fucking jumped because I was so invested in the scene at that moment, because I knew that every step was absolutely crucial. It made a difference between her life and her death. On top of wondering where the fuck are her sister and brother? And did she cause their deaths?
And that's the other thing. And that speaks to the immersion of this film. You knew that this girl survived. You know that she's an activist before you watch this movie. And yet, you still jumped.
Yeah.
Because you're immersed in this moment. And it was beautifully done, and that was definitely the best scene of the movie for me.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to Train to Busan, because I don't want to give a full hour. We already spent over 20 minutes on this particular film.
Okay, so let's wrap up.
Okay.
First to Kill My Father, I've moved mine up to an 8 out of 10. You should definitely watch it at least once, possibly a few times.
I would keep it at 8.5. Easily. The pacing of the movie, I know was purposeful. It doesn't necessarily make it enjoyable, but I don't think the point is for it to be enjoyed. But it is still a very powerful and important film. Yeah.
So pros, it's emotional. It's tense at the right moments. It's investing. Cons, it's a little confusing. And subtitles. But that's the other thing, real quick. Major kudos to Angelina Jolie for not whitewashing the film.
Absolutely.
Not only is the entire...
Stop? Go ahead.
Not only is the entire cast, I'm assuming Cambodian, but even the titles, the credits, everything is in Cambodian and then translated to English.
I don't know if Cambodian is the actual language that they speak, but we'll just go with that.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Angelina Jolie. Now, moving on to Train to Busan.
Yes.
Oh my god, where do we start? I loved this movie.
I absolutely fucking love this film. I generally hate horror movies. Zombie films, though, to be fair, zombie films tend to have a higher ranking for. It's easier for me to like a zombie film than it is for me to like a slasher film.
That's true, but I've seen you rip into some zombie films.
No, yeah, it still needs. There's certain things that need to be met in a zombie film. This one absolutely fucking met it. can I start by saying that when it comes to the emotion of this film, I want to tie back to the previous one. And that is that in the same moment that I'm watching this little girl crying her eyes out in film in First They Killed My Father, I somehow still was more moved by the performance of the little girl in Train to Busan.
Yeah, I can see that.
Absolutely. I don't know if it's a lack of context. I don't know if it's a lack of dialogue. I don't know what it is that I was missing in First They Killed My Father that gave me an 8. I am giving it an 8.5. Whereas with Train to Busan, I can easily see myself giving it a 10. If I'm gonna be real, maybe 9.5. It's like, I don't know if we really ever get
just because you don't want to give a horror movie a 10.
I know I said the stream I gave it a 10, but like 9.5. But yeah, honestly a 10. But yeah, like whatever that difference of a point is, or point and a half, this little girl made up for it in Train to Busan. And yeah, no, I fucking love this film.
I think part of it is it's more of a physical performance. There were a lot of times at First They Killed My Father where it felt like the girl was sat in front of the camera and said, "This is your emotion." And she just stood there and gave that emotion. Whereas in Train to Busan, everything is moving around her. The environment is moving. She's moving. Everything is emotion at all times.
It's a faster paced movie, so it might be a matter of difference of personal opinion. If you're very much into like more biopics, true to life stories, things like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you would give,
but not as much about zombie films. Then you may be more inclined to like First They Killed My Father versus
over
Train.
Yeah,
but I like both styles of films, but it's easier for me to watch zombie films than other ones. Even if I can watch all of them.
So, I want to talk about the pace of the film, because the pace is beautiful. Basically, it starts off rather slow. You have your first scene where it kind of tells you what's going on. The guy hits the deer, and then the deer gets up. And that was the thing. And it made me stop the movie to actually call Ariane, because she was out of town when I watched it. And I just wanted to rave about just this opening scene because it's different. It's not the stereotypical zombie start. It's weird, it's unnerving, and it's just something different.
Okay.
And then you cut to the father, one of the main characters, who's you get this scene where you pretty much figure out he's a workaholic, a hardworking businessman. He's a decision maker. He has a lot of control. And he goes home to his daughter, whose birthday's the next day, and he buys her a present. And this is the first pro I want to hit on. He brings her a present after arguing with his ex-wife on the phone, who says, "Do you even know it's her birthday today?" And he goes, "Of course," and hangs up on her. And he pulls out this present out of the back seat and gives it to her, and it's a Wii. And, everyone at home's like, "Yeah, she got a Wii. That's fucking awesome. Happy birthday."
Man, it should be a Wii U. This is 2016.
Yeah, but here's the great part. She looks up, and there's no dialogue here. She just looks up, and the camera pans with her over.
He's like, "What's wrong? Is this, like, do you not like it?"
Yeah, that's all you get.
Like, obviously, she's unhappy with the present.
She looks up, camera pans, and there's her Wii plugged in, out of the box, ready to play, and she just looks at her father and says, "Children's Day this year." He had already bought it for her, and just there's two, maybe three lines in that entire scene, and bam, you have their relationship. You know exactly how their relationship is, and it is beautifully done. And right there's your character building, your backstory. It started on its slow climb of the roller coaster. And did you want to jump in here?
No, I find myself having a hard time talking about this movie, mainly because I enjoyed it so much. I don't know how to describe it or what to say. Not even worrying about spoilers. It's just I fucking loved everything about this movie. I don't remember much about the music. I don't remember the use of it or not.
See, and that surprises me because the music actually resonated with me quite well.
I'm thinking back on it. I can't remember.
There was the specific scene was in the train station when they finally land after the bullshit. The shit's hit the fan. They land at the station. The army's supposed to be waiting for them. The moment when the Horde attacks, the music that hit there was spot the fuck on. It was riveting. It was pulse pounding. It was very, very well done.
I'm trying to organize my thoughts here, and I'm having a hard time. The only thing I can come up with is that I fucking loved this little girl. Okay, you know what? No, I'll start here. Some of the cons. I'll start with the cons because I think they're easier.
There's cons.
There's fewer of them. In this movie, much like with probably every other horror survival movie specifically, there are tropes. There always are. There is the one douchebag that you
the
just
stereotypes,
who's just. And this guy, in this one, he was just almost like overly douchey. Like you just like how are you still alive? Like why has everyone not already killed you? Like it's because I can't stand your voice any longer. Like that sort of thing. Like that person you wanted to die, whereas there are other ones you wanted to live. You wanted the little girl to live. You wanted the pregnant mother to live. You wanted her husband to live. By extension of the fact that you wanted the pregnant woman to live, she cares about him. Therefore, you should care about him.
And you want the father to live.
And you want the father to live. You want the old women to live. Like you want the baseball kid and his girlfriend to live. Like you wouldn't even want the homeless guy to live. That's the reason why you wouldn't want the homeless guy to live.
Best homeless guy in a horror movie ever.
But the idea is that like he has no other attachment to anyone else, and part of a lot of times when you see the movies is what makes you care about the characters is their relationship to other people. And not necessarily about them per se. That's sometimes an actual drawback a lot of times with a lot of movies. People have said that about maybe say in like Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister, for example. People don't care about him on his own, but mostly care about him in his relationship to other people. They care about him in relationship to how him and Cersei interact, and how she's just a crazy baddie bitch. And Brienne, and other people making him more humanized than him by himself can do. And likewise, I think with the homeless character, where he is the one who survived from whatever horror he saw before all this shit hits the fan in front of everyone else who's around him, but you still want him to live. You want everyone to live, except for that one guy who really, really fucking sucks, and he can just go. That would probably be the con to me, is that these characters are characters that you are supposed to want to live.
They're archetypes.
They're archetypes, essentially. But every movie has them, so the fact that they're obvious is kind of like, meh, but I don't care. So usually I care, but they gave me every other reason to not care, so I'm going to take them at their word. I'm not going to care. So, no, yeah. But the little girl's acting!
Baby, you know what? I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Go ahead and just go on a tirade about the little girl.
I'm not going to tirade about the little girl for 5 minutes because we really do got to wrap this up. But
we don't gotta wrap this up. I still got shit to talk about.
We should wrap this up because I know we've gone long for movies before. I really want this to be more like digestible for people. So I don't really want to go much more than like 40 minutes. So I'm gonna make it brief. But I will say the little girl's acting is phenomenal. Like I don't know what they did to her in real life so that they were able to get the same amount of emotion from her on screen. Like they killed her puppy literally in front of her and like said, "Here, say these lines." Like holy God! Like I don't know how else you can get this little kid to be as believable. But what I will also say is that I am not that familiar with the film storytelling from the Asian market. I know that this reminded me a lot of High School of the Dead for a few reasons. One, if you haven't seen High School of the Dead, I say check it out. It's fantastic. I loved it. Very much Romero, very much pervy, but some of that is to be expected, I think, to an extent from some
It's
anime.
an anime, by the way.
If I didn't already say that, it's an anime, but yeah. I've only seen one season. I don't know if there's more, but I've only seen one season dubbed. And so, in that one, similarities are that the zombies have limited vision. It's very much about, auditory, if they can hear you, a sort of thing. The way they're shot, the camera angles, the fisheye lens style, the pacing, and like I don't know if they speed it up or whatever to make people look like they're going faster than they actually are or not, so that you get the feeling of the rush in the crowd.
No, yeah, there's some moments where I think they do that.
But that is the angles in which like the people who are trying to kill like eat you, like their jaws are looking like they're almost unhinged, which I know wasn't necessarily the true. I know it's not necessarily a camera CGI either. I think it's largely more a camera trick and makeup. But those sort of practical effects were just incredible to watch. And you mentioned the contortionist. I know you want to talk about that a little bit more, but I want to talk about like, yes, there was definitely CGI used, but it wasn't CGI heavy. It was absolutely a lot of practical effects being utilized, and I always appreciate when a movie leans more on that.
And the CGI was strong.
Oh, absolutely.
So the contortionist she brought up, this was one of my favorite practical effects I saw in the movie. At some point, one of the baseball players dies, and he's on the subway ramp, and he lifts his leg over his head, plants it right next to his head, and then uses it to bring himself standing. And I've seen that trick, like on America's Got Talent or one of those kinds of shows, where a contortionist will come on who can do all this crazy stuff with the body, and they'd be able to do that. And I feel like they hired that guy so he could do that practical effect. And it was amazing, because that's how a zombie would get up.
It's creepy as fuck.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I love running zombies. Don't get me wrong, walking zombies have their place, but oh my god, nothing is more tense than a horde of these things sprinting after you.
No, yeah, because think about it for a second. Like, it's one thing when you have a horde of running zombies, like, you know, Walking Dead, when they see something and they decide they want to run after you, but they're mostly shuffling along anyway. Like, here's the scene from, like, season 2 where, like, Shane and fucking whatever his name was, Edgar, I think, or whatever, like, are shuffling along, like, they're both wounded, and they're still outrunning, but they're gonna be overcome by these zombies at some point, but they are not overwhelmed, like, immediately, like they would have been with 28 Days Later zombies, or World War Z
these
zombies,
guys.
or these guys. Think about it, if you're running for the bus, or you're running, and you're a normal human being, and you don't run every day, because you don't run every day, and you're lazy as fuck like us, you are scared out of your wits, because you know that I might be able to run for a little bit, but that's all. Like, I am not going to be able to outrun these motherfuckers very long. Number one, I don't run. Number two, the human beings are not generally designed to be sprinters. We're marathonists. Like, we can do sprinting, we can do it, but we can't do that shit for long. Yeah. We're not built for it.
And that's the other thing, is you brought up that they were more auditory. I don't believe that was true. I believe they were more visual, but they had no night vision.
They were confused by darkness.
Yes.
That is actually a
which was very
for me.
It was very interesting to me, and I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it, but there was a scene where like they are like essentially being overran by the zombies, and they go through a tunnel, and then there's darkness except for like a few of the flashing lights that might be confused the zombies, and you said that they might be confused.
Which the way they're shooting the lights and the way they're shooting the zombies' face afterwards, it seems like the film's trying to convey that the lights are confusing.
But it is weird though that like they would go from being literally on top of a motherfucker to like all of a sudden there's darkness and confusing lights. They wouldn't still be like, oh well, that person's still in front of me. Like I can still feel them. like I was like, that part wouldn't still be there. Now again, there's a lot about this movie that I loved that I'm willing to forgive a lot of shit, and that's not necessarily a big thing. That's probably one of the biggest things to me.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, because you actually made a good point there.
But that's not so big that it again drew me out of my immersion so much that I'm like, that's some bullshit. I can't watch this movie no more, which I have done for other horror movies particularly.
Jigsaw.
Oh my god, like from the word
literally flipped off the screen in the middle of the movie theater.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was surprised it took me that long to do it then. But yeah, so, but yeah, this movie was fantastic. I highly, highly, highly recommend anyone to go back and watch it. And I think even with having told you all what's going on in the movie, I don't think we revealed enough. I think that you can still watch this if you haven't already seen it, to go back and watch it. Like, please do.
There's two things I want to talk about before we wrap up here.
Okay.
First one is the reconciliation. The daughter realizing that she needs her father, and the father realizing that this is what he wanted from his daughter all alone, and this is how he should have gotten it. And it was too late.
Yeah.
But
I'm not going to say anything else.
This is spoilers.
I know, but I don't care. I can't even talk about it. I don't want to.
Well, I'm going to. You told me you didn't want to. I do. So she's just clutching at his shirt.
Yeah.
Because he knows he has to leave.
Yeah.
Because he's been bitten.
Yeah.
Oh no! Spoilers! Hello, it says in the title.
I don't want to talk about it just because, like, it's just...
He's been bitten, and she's pulling at the shirt, and he puts his hand over hers, knowing that he's gonna have to pull this hand away, but he just kind of hesitates for a second, because this is the love that he wanted from his daughter all along. You could tell in the first scene when he gets her the Wii. He's just looking at her face, waiting for that reaction that, oh, I love you, Daddy, thank you so much. He doesn't get it, and he finally gets it here knowing it's too late. And it's just a very, very emotional scene.
I didn't think it was... that's not how I took it, and now I'm going to have to talk about it.
That's how I feel.
I took it more as regret that he didn't do more to get this during life.
Oh, that was part of it.
Like, I feel like that was that feeling of when anyone that you care about is gone or gonna go, and realizing you wish you had more time. Why didn't you do more when you had time? Like, I think that's more the feeling I got from that scene. Like, granted, he was probably happy to have seen it, because up until this point, she's been kind of a dick to him. And granted, she has every reason to. But, in general, though, like, I think that it was more about his feeling of loss than it was the feeling of relief that he might have gotten from her loving him. Like, she wanted more time from him. That's all she ever wanted. Even when she's being a dick to him, she's being a dick to him because she's pissed that he hasn't made time for her. And it all stems from the scene where they talk about the song that she tried to sing in school.
And this was my next point, so great segue.
That he wasn't there for, and she couldn't finish it because. And so, like, it's just... there's almost an element of Cloverfield to me, I think, that I feel when I watch this movie. That a lot of people didn't like Cloverfield, that I absolutely fucking love. Because it's in those last moments that you make it count. And realizing how brief and fleeting life is, that a lot of the stupid shit that we allow to keep us from being able to express how what we really feel to our loved ones is just that. It's bullshit. And that it's part of life, unfortunately. And it's part of what makes life great, that we should appreciate it more, because it is fleeting. And that we are going to be stupid about it. And which all you can do is to grab and hold on to those moments when you are recognizing them, and you just hope it's not the last one.
Yeah. Now, this is my last point, and then we'll wrap it up here. That song.
Yeah.
First of all, kudos to the filmmakers, because how many times have we seen that scene where they see a video of something they missed, and it's focused on the father, like the kid hit a home run, or the kid, did something, he accomplished something, he had a great performance. I loved how they showed the kid failing. It really spoke to me, It wasn't that the kid could do this without him, it's that the kid can't do this without you. And she couldn't finish the song, and then jump forward to the middle of the movie when she gives the explanation for why she couldn't finish the song. She couldn't finish it because you weren't there.
She sang it just for him, and he wasn't there.
She made the song for him.
Well, she didn't. No, she didn't make it.
I thought you said she wrote that song for him.
No, she practiced it for him. It's the aloha oi, aloha oi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know the rest of the words.
But anyway,
yeah, that's the song she's singing.
Then you cut to the end of the film. They're walking down the tunnel, and they've been given the order to shoot these two. And you think they're going to die because of George A. Romero's sick ass.
Yeah.
Where he kills the main character at the end.
No, yeah.
And you're like, fuck, no, not again!
I've been gone through all this bullshit, and the man survived, only to be killed for no good goddamn reason.
Yeah. And you think that's what's coming, and then you hear the song. And it honestly made me cry. I have not cried in a horror movie ever. Horror movies don't make me cry.
They're not supposed to.
And just hearing her sing this song to save their lives.
Well, she wasn't singing it, I think, to save their lives. I don't realize how close they were to dying.
She was singing it to him.
Yeah.
Because the words are talking about,
you again.
Yeah, it's about someone who's separated from someone.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful song. And the fact that they use it like that, it's just kind of this running theme through the movie that you never think of because there's zombies everywhere.
No, yeah.
And then there's this subtle theme that you don't pay attention to until the very last seconds.
No, yeah.
And then they punch you in the face with it over and over and over again.
Rip your guts
and
out.
it's like, oh my god!
Ripped your heart out and ate it with a spoon.
So yes.
In front of you.
Train to Busan, there is a whole lot of shit we did not cover.
No, yeah.
And part of that is because we want you to fucking watch it.
If you haven't already watched it by now, though, because we spoiled everything that I think is... Like, we spoiled a good portion of it for you.
There was still one very powerful scene that I left out on purpose.
But I also say, though, that Matt watched this without me, and then he came back and watched it again with me.
The next day.
Yeah, I had no problems doing that.
24 hours.
I have no problem watching this movie again. I think it is just that good.
We may watch it again this weekend when all our friends come down.
I hope so.
I might be like, guys, I know it's late. We're watching this.
Try and do it on Sunday or something like that before everyone leaves.
Possibly.
So, but yeah.
But anyway, so those are our discussions. Please watch Train to Busan for sure. Watch First They Killed My Father just because it's an important story to watch.
And I still think it's a good movie.
Yeah, if nothing else. But those two movies you should definitely go see. Mindhunters is definitely a series you should watch. We will have 2 more discussions on Wednesday. One spoiler-free of The Babysitter and Spectral, 2 Netflix original movies. And we will also have a spoiler-heavy discussion on those movies.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. Thank you for joining us tonight. And look forward to more. Oh, and of course, do not miss the giant roundtable, many hours long Star Wars conversation of The Last Jedi, Saturday night between 10 and 11 Eastern. Somewhere in there we're going to start. Oh my god, make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be off the chain. For No Car Entertainment, this is Matt.
This is Ariane.
We're out.
Bye.